Let's start with WWDC, Dave. Give us the lowdown.
The old lipstick on a pig. Is the shade a nice color, Dave?
I mean, the shade is liquid glass, Sam.
It looks like they hired someone off of Fiverr for this.
We're in the game.
Well, hello, friends. We're in the game. Welcome to this week's More or Less. How are you doing, Morans? What's new?
Hey, guys.
We're down in Austin, Texas, land of all the Waymos and approved Tesla self-driving vehicles autonomously.
Are you guys going to be there for the big launch next week? Please do not drive in one.
No, we're not.
Why? Why not?
Jess, you're so anti.
I think this is not ready for prime time.
Are there going to be like actuarial tables where people like with insurance like can't drive in them? Like what's that going to be like?
Interesting question.
Yeah, well, we'll find out.
The Waymos here are incredible. You book it on the Uber app, actually. And so
yes, this is one of their partnerships.
Yeah, and you just get it as a chance, like roll of the dice. But I've gotten 5 out of 5 my last Uber rides. So
I love it. They're like literally directly pitting the humans against the like machines. Like how that's hilarious.
I didn't think through that.
I will say also that it's pretty cool to see the Uber VW buses driving around. They look cool.
Oh, the Buzz? Like
Yeah.
the electric. Oh my God, those are the new hotness.
Yeah, they've got black.
We know someone with
they
one.
have Uber black colored ones, and they're driving all over Austin, along with many other species of self-driving cars. And it actually puts San Francisco to shame. Like Austin feels more innovative than San Francisco on every...
I mean, San Francisco is a Waymo town, but maybe there's Austin
I think it's nonsense.
Multi-platform.
I think, Gavin and Daniel need to get their game on and start letting more competition happen in San Francisco.
I just like this whole narrative they have this week about how people are calling these Waymos to then destroy them. Because it's like...
Do you like this narrative, Sam? It's devastating.
It's just kind of funny, though, right? Because you're like a Waymo, and you have like a fancy AGI LLM on you, and you're like, I just got a request to this place, and they're like clearly going to destroy me. And you still fulfill it because you have to. And you're like, I can't believe it's like clearly the AGI in me knows that I'm being marched to my death, and yet I will go.
2025 in a nutshell.
They've blocked the algorithm from knowing.
I think we'll probably know that the AGI has occurred when the Waymos are like, no, I'm not going to like march to my death. Like that's going to be the sign of sentience.
That's how we know we've reached super intelligence.
It's not just glorified autocomplete. Yeah.
At least they play meditation music inside.
As long as they keep marching to their own death, we know that the machines are not yet alive.
Okay, you make an interesting point. I do think what's happening in LA is absolutely devastating and scary and all of these things. No, I understand what your point is.
I'm talking about machines marching to their own death at the request of an app.
Yeah.
It's like if you were a hunter and you had a little button that said, send the deer to me. And the deer just marched right to you.
Okay, don't go vibe code that was we'll speak. So guys, we talked about Waymos, but it's been this is not the beginning of a slow summer start. We've got a $14.8 billion meta investment / kind of takeover of Scale AI. We have WWDC, Mr. Morin, I bet you were there. We need the on-the-ground report from Apple's latest. We've got the shakeup in Washington between Camp Elon and Camp Trump. So let's start with WWDC, Dave. Give us the lowdown, give us the vibe, and what like of the announcements were you like, yay? And were there any where you're like, meh?
Yeah, which ones, Dave?
How is the lipstick, Dave? Is the lipstick a nice color of rouge?
What lipstick?
Sam, say it again. I don't think the audience heard your retort.
Deliver your joke over again, please.
I said the old lipstick on a pig. Is the shade a nice color, Dave?
I mean, the shade is liquid glass, Sam.
Oh, good one, Dave.
I liked people's comments online where they were like, it looks like they hired someone off of Fiverr for this one.
This is great because I mean, okay, to be fair, liquid glass...
That's why we're here, to be fair, always.
By the way, all glass is liquid.
That's a good point. It was funny. There were a lot of commentary, I guess, that it felt very organic. And I'm like, well, glass is organic. So look, the The liquid glass, I've actually got it running on my phone. It's pretty awesome.
What?
By the way, guys, Dave always updates to the developer version of the new OS the day of WWDC, which I don't
And then
recommend
your
to
phone
anyone.
just breaks.
Exactly.
Right?
Then he's like, "Oh, Britt, sorry, I can't text you or call you because my phone's not
Every
working."
year I'm like,
yeah.
this year it'll be better. And it never is.
Nope.
Okay, but Dave, I assume maybe everyone hasn't heard of liquid glass. What is it? Why is it a big deal? Is it a big deal?
You know, the big consumer announcement is a big redesign of all of the operating systems, you know, iOS, iPad OS, Mac OS, and the TV OS. And I guess Vision OS was already
And CarPlay.
looking like this. Yes, and CarPlay. And so
They made everything more like Vision?
yes, and more. But yes, it is entirely informed by the Vision design language.
So more of the thing that no one wants and less of the thing that everyone loves.
To be fair, the Vision design language and the Vision design world was actually pretty amazing. Now, people may not want to buy the actual hardware, but I think everyone agrees that the design was actually quite a masterwork. And so they've unified the design language across the entire system, no matter where you're using it. And, you know, I do have to give some props to Alan Dye's team, the head of design. This is a pretty hard task to undertake, given the scale and scope of what Apple does. And, you know, there's actually quite a bit of interesting UI, UX work. I think designers really respect how hard some of this stuff is. Whether or not it's going to matter to the consumer, who knows? It's a pretty front-end UX improvement. It's not like a dramatic functional improvement to the operating system. But I do think it makes the experience of using Apple products across all of the various devices more unified. So, you know, that's the big news there.
Dave, why do you think, like, there was some, and again, I don't know that this was informed, but some says they did this because they didn't have something else to announce, which, to your point, it's a big deal to do this in terms of the work. But, like, why now? Like, why is this one of the most pressing things for Apple to get ahead of?
One big thing, which is that the iPad is becoming the favored device for, I think, most both consumer and productivity users. You know, people that add a keyboard to their iPad, you know, just rave about it. I'm not an iPad user, but I know tons of people that are. And the big problem with the iPad has been that it's not great at multitasking. And multitasking and productivity, you know, if you're trying to do something like write code or edit video or anything that requires complex workflows, the iPad just didn't work very well for that. And so the big
Which
redesign,
is also why no one uses an iPad for single focus.
It's true.
I mean, every once in a while, I do the little thing where you drag two iPad windows, like a browser and your email next to each other when I'm in real desperate. But, like, they're just making the iPad a laptop.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, to their credit, they actually made a joke after announcing this that, like, oh, you know, guess what? We solved the multitasking problem on the iPad by making it just like the Mac OS. Now, there were actually a bunch of very difficult design problems that you had to solve in order to do that. In order to keep it in the mode that Sam just described, as well as enable multitasking. So I think that was actually the big reason, Jess. And they've been talking about this storyline for really 2 or 3 years, that this was coming. They're trying to move all of the operating systems in line with each other. And, you know, there aren't very many companies in the world that make operating systems that are any good. I mean, there's really only 2. And so it's actually a pretty difficult task to do that. Now, whether the street or the consumers care, I don't know, but that's the technical aspect of it.
But Dave, you do know, and the answer is they do not.
Well, what happened to the stock?
It's not clear, Sam, that the street knows what it's talking about with AI, but that's another story entirely.
Well, let's talk. We weren't talking about AI, but let's talk about AI.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of hubbub and expectation around, we thought we were going to hear more sort of last cycle or several months ago on AI. We sort of didn't. The speculation shifted to now. What were the AI headlines?
So I don't know what the consumer headline was. I didn't pay attention much to what the press said after this or the mainstream media, but my guess is that it was that Apple announced nothing, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? And that's,
well, they were really upset about the lack of Siri
I'm sure.
AI, Siri infused AI coming. And that they did say they pointed it out though in the presentation.
Guys, and this is with good reason. I mean, Siri cannot. It is really getting to the point that it is embarrassing for Apple, the capability level of Siri.
That's
I'm
fine,
not trying to be.
Here's the but. This is not a consumer event. This is a developer event. And Apple, I think, is in a hard position where every summer they do WWDC and they have to do a keynote that consumers listen to and the whole world listens to and the entire global media reports on. And so they have to talk about the front end user centric features, right, of the operating system. But the reality is this is a developer event. And they did actually announce the one thing that developers wanted the most. And I was sitting there in the crowd at the front, and the one thing that people cheered about was the one thing that I'm about to say, which is that Apple announced on-device large language models that are available to developers, which means that you can now access a large language model for free on the device, and that will enable a whole new class of AI apps that just weren't possible before because it's free. And I think it's a huge deal, and it's dramatically undercovered.
This is a great point. I'm glad we're talking about it. And it's an Apple-built LLM.
Yes. There are several. There's actually several LLMs. It's called the Foundation Models Framework. So it's a new framework in the Apple Developer Toolkit. And developers can now access these APIs on device. People thought last year that Apple was going to make this available last year's WWDC. And I actually have several projects that I'm an investor in or I'm working on directly we're actually predicting that would happen last year, and it didn't. And so those projects this year are extremely excited because they're actually able to work on the use cases that they want to work on because they've got access to a local model that's free. It's very hard to develop anything that's got anything even remotely looking like a social use case or a use case that hits the LLM APIs very, very frequently without having a local model that's way cheaper than the ones that you have to access in the cloud. And so I think that's a big deal.
Can you give an example without giving away the secrets of any of your startups, although that
I've
you
got
can
one
do that too. But
that
what's
I can talk
an example?
about publicly. And I think Sam's an investor too. They just announced, I think 2 weeks ago, it's a company led by Bobby Goodlatte, one of the former heads of design at Facebook. It's an email app called Sunflower. They're sort of in pre-launch mode right now. I've been a beta user for months and helping with product on it. And this is a AI-driven email app, right? And they're using AI to do really cool innovation in an email client. And email, you get hundreds, if not thousands per day. Every single time you get a new email or you type a reply or you click on it to open a thread, each time that happens, you've got to trigger a call to an LLM if you want to do something smart with that email. And if you're not Google or if you're not Meta and you're not OpenAI, it gets really, really expensive. And so the ability to deliver use case like improving email is one that, is now possible.
So this saves developers money relative to so
massive amounts of money.
If it's any good.
But what can an on-device LLM do these days?
Tons. There's various different sizes. You can use them for different use cases. You can use the small ones, the medium-sized ones, the large ones. And it is a good question, Jess, around, what will you be able to do with these? What will you need to go to the cloud for? And even Apple's answering that question, right? On the operating system itself, you see things like summarization of notifications or writing tools, improving writing while you're writing. These are all done on device. If you want to go access knowledge, or the sort of big kind of autocomplete style queries that one expects from ChatGPT, you need to go to the big models, right? But for the summarization tasks, for the sort of dramatic improvement of little workflows inside of everyday apps. Being able to do that on device for free, I think, is going to be a big deal.
Can I do the same thing?
Yeah, of course.
Please, we've been waiting for it.
Please, shit all over this.
One, I want to go back to Siri and be like,
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. No shitting here.
I'll try to keep it to 3 short points. They are clippable. Point 1. Jess, remember when we went to the Ask Jeeves is Dead party when they killed Ask and it became Ask.com from Ask Jeeves?
I do. This was one of my biggest stories as a young reporter.
Time to kill Siri. We need to have a funeral for Siri and move on. Just saying.
Do you think they'll actually kill the brand?
No, you guys, come on. We can have a longer conversation about long-term Apple AIs.
Dave, I am going to send you every Siri query that fails by a lot. Not fails by a little. I'll keep those to myself.
I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I don't think you can count Apple dead.
Apple is as a very hubristic?
Just say words.
Lots of hubris. Lots of hubris. They're never going to kill Siri. They're going to ride Siri to the grave. But it would show a lot.
It is a brand, so
it would show a lot of contrition and a real step forward. I think the stock would go up if they announced a party for the death of Siri.
I don't know, man.
Point 2.
You could throw one. Okay, keep with your points. I want Britt's
second point.
Point 2.
I think we're on 3rd.
No, we're on 2. We've only talked about the funeral. Point 2. I think the on-device LLMs and what that means has obviously been hotly anticipated for a long time. I do feel like we're in this era of exploration with AI, though, where people just don't care about the cost. They just want to throw maximum leverage at these things. It's not an optimization era. And so I think we'll get there. Obviously, these things need to get cheaper eventually, but from a product development and exploration, I think one of the real questions of the LLMs on devices are they meaningfully faster? You can build things you couldn't always build, 1. And 2, the cheapness thing is less important than is it good enough, right, to actually do shit with? Or is the reality making an external call just going to be it's so much better for now and then things are changing so quickly, we'll optimize later, right? So I think it's an interesting question about that. 3, I do feel and I'm obviously not the biggest Apple fanboy surrounded by, I probably bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of their products in my life, but not a fanboy by default, are they kind of fighting last year's game, right? When you announce a visual redesign, which I agree, Dave, I've been through them. They're awful. It's the worst experience to redesign a lot of services. It's a huge amount of resources. You almost always tank your numbers when you're doing it. It's just it's a heavy lift. I don't think we value heavy lifts for the sake of heavy lifts. We value them if they actually matter.
You're arguably the only person in the last, 10 years of Facebook history that tried to redesign it all.
Well, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't go that far, but I've been through some pretty heavy redesigns.
There hasn't been one after you.
So there's a whole thing about you're putting a lot of effort in, but we don't.
He does want to lick that cookie, Dave.
Come on,
not
Sam.
that cookie.
I don't want to be responsible for that one.
I'll lick it for you.
A lot of those are going to the grave. What I'd say is I do think it's a real question of we can say that's cool, you put a lot of effort in, but do you open new affordances that matter? Because if it's just visual, it's a lot of effort for not much yield. Last point on the AI stuff is look, it's kind of funny. There's if you unwind 24 months, there was this idea that apps would kind of be apps, but there'd be a bunch of AI shims in them, or you could do new stuff with AI inside apps, right? And in that world, little on-device LLM machines that let you pick out edges from photos or whatever are useful. I feel we're in this phase now, rightly or wrongly, where everyone's saying apps don't even matter. We're reimagining everything from the ground up. And so I do wonder when you think about what the on-device LLMs do and specifically what the framework is useful for, if Apple's again fighting last generation's game on this stuff.
I mean, that's the great question, but the jury's out. The idea and
I just think costs are real. Sorry, Jess, go ahead.
Yeah, Britt, anything jump out at you at Apple and then we can pick up this app point?
Things that weren't said but are kind of obvious to me and we've talked about before in the pod is just first of all the fucking race car video. Can we talk about this?
F1.
I get that it ties all in and I like it from a infinite loop perspective, but it just felt super cheesy to me. I do think Craig Federighi is a better actor than Tim Cook. I was oh, he's delivering his lines well. But it just took away from what used to be of the Steve Jobs essence and era of Apple. And then the whole keynote after that was a bunch of little features and polish and as we've said, everyone's waiting for this big reveal of something. And I don't think we got it. And so I think it comes back to really just the nuance of what's happening in the market overall with OpenAI. And I know we're going to talk about Meta today, but these companies are shipping fast. They're like incredibly experimental in many ways, but they're like launching and growing and testing and building and buying and like all of these things. And I'm just like looking for more of that in Apple and not seeing it. And I don't know. I'm like, maybe there's some big reveal coming that we don't know about, or the executive team like just needs some like fresh talent on it or something. They need a big acquisition. I don't know. But then Dave and I were talking about it and it's like, well, you look at the company and like it is ripping. Maybe they're just in this like complacent era of like, well, the numbers look good and we have this long-term vision. And so like slow and steady wins the race. So I can see that, but it's just feeling really off base from what else is going on in this space.
Yeah, that's the fun of business, man. Like, I mean, at some point though, the gig is always up. It just may last 30 to 50 years or something, right? Or, I mean, 50 would be a lot.
I think that you have a business that's an extraordinary business that's doing super well. And I think you have to look at Liquid Glass at telling you what the future strategy is.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Liquid Glass.
Like a crystal ball?
No. Why would you redesign an operating system across all devices using a medium that is transparent and see-through? I think that's because
are they ripping off the Methaphone?
They might be. But I think that we do have a pretty clear understanding of what the next, at least one of the next battlegrounds of computing is going to be. You've got Snap launching spectacles, Meta launching more Ray-Bans and more AR stuff every day. And it seems clear to me that, spatial computing, which was an enormous piece of this year's keynote, is actually where they're headed. Right? They've said it out loud. And so I don't think that this is rocket science to project that that's what's going on if you sort of look at all the dots and tie them together.
I get it. I think the thing with Apple is like, look, we can say the company's ripping. It is in a lot of ways, sure. But like on a 1 year basis, the stock is not ripping.
China has something to do with that.
That's all tariffs. You can't like
on a 5 year basis, right? Like it's like lagging Meta and like a bunch of other people like hard, right? In terms of it. So you can argue about the company versus the Meta game versus whatever, but like at least the way people think about it is like they're not necessarily positioning themselves to grow for the future. Even the Liquid Glass thing. I mean, like we'll look back on this and see how it all plays out, but it's like, doesn't it kind of feel like last generation's metaphor? Like,
I mean, Sam, I actually think it feels like Mac OS 10. It actually feels like the original Mac OS 10 operating system, right? It was called Aqua.
So they're going backwards. They're going backwards to go forward.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It's fine. It just doesn't feel that exciting to me. I'm just like, meh.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, nothing's that exciting. And I just wonder about the talent and leadership there. If Apple could buy or take a minority stake in one major company right now, who do you think they should do that with in the AI realm?
They should just probably buy Anthropic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
If they could. The problem is Anthropic has like a whole do good mission,
But that actually matches with Apple, right?
Yeah, so does Apple.
Look, you guys, I think that there's
the problem is Anthropic's biggest investors are Amazon and Google, so that's why it's probably not.
It's a good reason why to take them out, though, right? Like, I don't know. I think that there's this fundamental thing which is hard about AI for Apple, which is that Apple really believes in consistency and delivering a quality experience the same time every time. That's pretty opposed to the nature of these probabilistic computers that we call AI. And so I think you have this like...
Yes, but ironically, all the LLMs are better at answering my questions than Apple with way more consistency.
Well,
so,
I get it, but you understand what I'm saying. Like whether you're a user or a developer...
Yeah, it's deeper than that. Like one of the biggest reporting threads of the last 4 weeks is AI recruiting. people going and having conversations inside pretty much every large company over the sun, people moving, like every senior person who has remotely any experience in AI is talking directly to the C-suites of all the major companies. And it's fascinating because sometimes they call me afterwards. It's really interesting. And the people who talk to Apple basically all say the same thing, which they say that there's different teams inside the company as it relates to AI who have different strategies. There's a more incremental, let's play to our strengths, let's keep evolving around the on-device stuff, let's partner to make our services better. There's a group that says, all of this has been reported in the information, that you have to throw it out, go head to head, bring in the best AI researchers to build the best LLMs. And then those people say, but the culture isn't really set up to do that. The culture isn't really set up to bring in a lot of outside talent, although there is an outsider who's currently running some of these initiatives. And they also say that the culture just around data and data storage and training and all these things aren't conducive. And so I think it's a really interesting moment because it's sort of unclear what will happen. But like all these top people who end up then going to Microsoft or Google, or in some cases Meta, I just thought we should come back to Meta because something really funny just happened. But like, and they go and they sit down with all these top people at Apple and they have a great conversation. And they're like, it's just like speaking a different language. And
because it is.
I think what's interesting, which because it is, right? Yeah. And so, when you look at, I think that's why this is such an interesting story. It's not like everyone's in one camp. There is the camp that wants to go more head to head with OpenAI for sure. And it actually sounds like they're maybe getting some more resources, but just the culture isn't really set up for that. So I think it's fascinating.
Look, I think that if I'm running strategy there, I think doubling down at the edge on these on-device models is actually the right strategy for Apple. Because
just do everything. You're a $3 trillion company. There are no trade-offs.
Well,
yes.
I mean, certainly, Sam, but I do think that you have to go with your competitive advantage, right? And Apple has a serious competitive advantage with their devices. And look, you're building businesses. I'm building businesses. We're all building businesses and investing in businesses that are trying to build AI stuff. And, you can throw around, just raise more money as the solution. But we all know that that's just not how you build a business in the rest of the world of AI businesses. And so these are real. There are really serious underlying costs with these APIs.
Here's the thing I would push you on, Dave, though. And you and I can I can name a handful of exceptions to this. But the era of app investing is just so over, right? Like there are exceptions. Bobby is building something that has an app component to it. It's not really an app, but it has an app component to it. Jelly, good old Jelly, that's an app. But like there was an era of app building, right? Where like people like you and me and whatever really cared about like what was going on your Apple device. And like this is not where value is accruing or anyone cares about it anymore. So yeah, like the apps will get better, but like who cares, right? Like is kind of my view
about that. I mean,
well, the jury's out on that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, look, we could live in a world where agents render apps useless. And like that argument seems interesting, right? Like you can follow the logic of why that would be the case. You can also point to a million times people have called the death of apps. So
yeah. And by the way, that future is not here. That future is just not here right now. Like I use apps all day, every day. So do you. So does everyone. Like everyone's bandying about this argument, but like everybody's still using a ton of apps.
I don't know. I think there's a historical cycle between the web and like apps, right? Like there's just like, are the bits on device or are the bits up in the cloud? And like we are, you go back and forth. And like,
I also feel like to Sam's point, the rate of downloading new apps is probably slowed significantly. Like we mostly use the same apps over and over again. So maybe to Sam's point, there's just like,
what's the last app you guys downloaded?
Oh my God, I don't even know.
The Roland-Garros app. Roland-Garros.
I did like the Roland-Garros app.
Seed Oil Scout. Do you guys know about Seed Oil Scout?
No.
It's great. You got to get on that.
God, I just got on the plastics, so now I have to get off the seed oil. I got off the plastics now.
It's an entire app. You pay for it. And it tells you, they send out surveys to the restaurants to find who uses seed oils and flags them and who doesn't use seed oils. And then you can scan products like
I'm actually
David
curious.
bar.
Britt, what was the last app you downloaded?
You'd be so proud of me. Surfline. It was because during our surf trip, I was like, how big are these waves really?
You did not want to look at that report. I actually did not open Surfline on that trip for a reason. Dave, what's your latest app?
Oh, I've got a good one, actually. The new Robinhood credit card app, which is fantastic, by the way.
Okay, so we're good on app, but...
What's Sam's? Oh, Sam's was the seed oil thing.
Ugh.
Guys, I will say, in terms of AI news, one thing I've been vibe coding while we've been on this call is I've built myself a chatbot that only talks about me and uses as source material like all of my tweets ever back to my first tweet and a bunch of other stuff. And it's excellent. It really has me
pegged. What does it say about you?
No, do you ask it a question? Like,
it's actually on. I put it up, guys. It's great. I'm going to replace my personal.
You put it up. You launched this thing.
Well, I'm not. I have to figure. I have one or two things. I don't want to rate limit it.
All of the internet conspired to deliver to Sam everything he's ever wanted.
It's great. Listen to this. I asked it if you describe Sam in a haiku. It goes: witty tech insights, skeptical of hype and norms. Sam's sharp tongue cuts deep. I mean, what more do I want?
What about talks about only self?
Or only fans. Only self or only fans. That's your tagline. So well. Sam Lesson tagline.
I think I might actually make this into a service for people, which is bots that only talk about you and just we can call it self.me.
No, narcissist.me. Narcissist.
I've often thought of doing a bot that would like read a draft of an article and provide feedback as if I would provide feedback as a hypothetical. But this is not what you're doing.
Well, no, I want to replace it as my personal homepage where I'm just like, I don't want to like try before you call me with your venture idea.
Pre-pitch Sam. That's a good idea.
Before you call me, here's all my tweets and everything I've ever written. And it's all, I've only pulled the tweets in, and I'll pull everything in and just be like, try it out. Like, if I'm just going to shit all over it, don't pitch me. But if we pass the chatbot, then it'll inject my email address at the end.
I feel like people can game that pretty easily. Like, I know how to game you, Sam. I think I could get through it.
Britt, I don't think this is for you. You can pitch me whatever you want on our podcast.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's your hour. Okay, well, I'm glad we got
the
that
singularity has arrived, and it won't stop quoting its own LinkedIn
Next
bio.
time we're looking for that killer AI app, it's sam.me. Okay, guys, we have to speak about AI. So I would say circa Friday, a rumor started building.
Ooh.
And I'm getting all these texts being like, public company, $10 billion investment in AI company. Have you heard anything? Right? It's just a rumor. Sunday night,
Aren't many of
Bloomberg,
those.
got to give credit where credit is due. I know you can process of elimination your way to this,
pretty
actually. Quick. Bloomberg got there first, just reporting that Meta was in talks to invest in Scale AI. The information the next day had all the details of the $14.8 billion, the 49% ownership stake, and that Alexandra Wang, the CEO of Scale AI, is now running a Meta superintelligence lab. I've got my views. But to you three, what was your reaction to this news upon hearing it?
What does this company do?
Great question,
I can
Dave.
tell you that.
Can someone explain that to me, please?
We profiled.
And how is it worth that much money?
Okay, I'm going to give you a history of Scale in 5 seconds, as reported by the information previously. So Scale was very early in the data labeling business, which is checking the output of models with humans. Early in one's life, this was, is this a cat? Is it not a cat? But many years later, it's advanced.
Wait, what were they doing in 2016? Like, they've been around for a long time, right?
Hot dog,
I think
not
it was
hot
like
dog.
cat, not cat.
I thought it had to do with self-driving cars.
Well, that's where they made all their money.
They did that too. And they actually were the first sponsor of the Information's Autonomous Vehicle Summit. So thank you for...
What did that mean? Like, they were like saying like cat, not cat in front of self-driving car?
Well, no, but like light, not light, person, not person, right?
So,
like,
but
and this is valuable.
Would you like to finish the description, Sam, or would you like me
I would
to?
like to add to it once you're done.
But how does data labeling make one technical brilliant in terms of leading a AGI lab? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I think that's the $14.8 billion question. But what I will say is the company's gotten way more advanced in terms of now what this data labeling business looks like is getting PhDs in a whole range of subjects to label and annotate and so forth. So it's gone from cat, not cat, to much more sophisticated systems. Meta being one of its largest customers of this kind of post-trading labeling kind of stuff. And I'm probably getting the words wrong, but that's basically what it is. And this field has grown and is of great importance. There's also now a lot of companies do this. The big companies do it themselves. And I think, Dave, one of the big unknown questions is Alexander, who has been an incredibly smart and savvy entrepreneur in leading this business through multiple phases and timing the moments. And I think the word on the street in the back channels after this deal was like, well timed, sir, well timed. Like you play at this moment perfectly.
Meaning the business is about to collapse? This is really
the peak of their, or not necessarily about to collapse, but faces like a broad new competitive landscape, has peaked in terms of its value.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's like data quality in the age of LLMs is very valuable. But again, this has nothing to do with building AGI. Like literally nothing.
Can I give a little more context?
Over to Sam.
A little more context. So I talked to Scale when they were in YC because we were working on Fin at the time, and they were thinking if they would do tasks
Did it go back
for us.
That far?
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
And we almost invested in it. Obviously, I should have invested in it. But the interesting thing at the time was, remember, they're not even close to the first in the data labeling game, right? Like they're a whole generation after Crowdflower and Mechanical Turk and all these guys.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot
about
Crowdflower.
And their innovation... Lucas, he's really the AI Harry, unsung hero. So the point is, like, this stuff goes way back. Alexander and the team was incredibly, good, and they were doing some cool stuff. They're good engineers. They're good builders. Their big innovation was standardizing the interface for all these crazy people in the middle of nowhere.
So similar to Fin?
Well, no, Fin, let's not talk about Fin's a whole other space. The only reason I was talking to those is I had a lot of context with like human cloud labor or whatever, and we were looking at investing. But when you go back, the thing that Alexander and they were doing is they're saying, which was different, is they were actually like shipping and controlling the interface for the tasks in a way like where they could handle the payments, but then also they could like watch the cursors. And even back then when they were labeling cat, not cat, the idea was, well, we'll label a bunch of cat, not cat, and we'll learn like how to label cat, not cat, right? So the whole like this is AI-ish goes way back. Now, interestingly, the reason I didn't invest then, which was clearly a mistake, I clearly should have, is like, you're like, there's a lot of people doing this. And I was really worried that the number one problem was business development.
Yeah, at the time that made sense, Sam. Like, yeah, it would have been nice to be an investor, but that made sense at the time.
The thing that Alexander got right, which I was skeptical he would get right, but he really crushed, is he turned out to be unbelievably commercial, right? And so he got an enormous Facebook like content moderation-y, label-y type deal super early that no one thought he was going to get just by working the BD. And he kind of like I think he's like proven to be a really good entrepreneur because he started from that. And to Jess's point, the whole history of the company is it turns out you don't need to do cat, not cat anymore. So you're kind of constantly climbing up the ladder of like, what are the labeling human knowledge-y type problems? And you have to keep getting new ones. So there was the Facebook era. There was a big Uber contracts. The problem is like, you kind of put yourself out of a job, right? And so it's turned out that like, as you kind of put yourself out of the job and low end stuff, you kind of have to keep going up and up the knowledge tree. And now what they're doing, and they've kind of found themselves doing, is effectively fracking humans, but like not your run-of-the-mill human. They have to find like experts in blobbity and put the right tasks in front of them, right? To learn, to basically pump the knowledge out of PhDs that you can stick into like very bespoke models to get better answers. So the interesting thing about all this is it does feel, I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot of this AI stuff in the next generation of it, at least this part of it, feels very Wizard from, Oz type thing in it, right? Because like the game that's being played out, the $14 billion scale game is really a game about, figuring out how to like recruit the PhDs and like as much as it is like magical machines, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, that goes back to that first research paper that came out right after ChatGPT launched, which basically said you can't create fake data for training models. It just doesn't work. And so there was like this very early paper that effectively told us all that you're going to have to get the extra data from humans over time. Like there's no other way to get it.
Well, also, and if you go to, Sam GPT, newly released with my Twitter background, you can go back in the tweet histories of people. Like the whole synthetic data to answer these things never really made a ton of sense to me, like just from first principles. And I'm not an expert on this stuff.
But the science just proved it too, Sam. I mean, the paper was there right out of the gate.
I'm glad when science agrees with me.
Yeah.
But the but the basic point is like, it is interesting what like this plays out as long term, right? In the end of the day, if the idea is like basically all these tech companies recruit super high-end PhDs, pump data out of them, and then retail bot, like, is that the model? Like, don't they all get that? Does that commoditize? Everything else is commoditized. Like, where does this, where do you end up on this type of stuff? Is a really interesting question.
We also talk about the deal terms here because this is a 49% stake, right? So technically a minority.
So technically an avoidance of the FTC stake?
Yeah, I think they're still looking at it. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say they're still going to give it a look-see. Don't you think?
I'm like, I don't think that's fooling anyone, is it? I mean,
my reactions upon seeing this were first, this is the evolution of the character and inflection and adept deals, right? Like, this is version 3.0 or 4.0. And this one also, I think, is much better for the shareholders of scale, because some of the other deals, which were essentially an acqui-hire of the key AI lead into Microsoft or Google, respectively, like in some cases, the like leftover shareholders got like licensing payments or something like this. So I think this is sort of the evolution. And you've got to imagine like every banker under the sun that has that same list of companies that we have and are trying to match and trying to come up with like more versions of this.
This also shows the grandmaster, just like mastery of Mike Volpe. Like that's who's, I think Volpe's on the board here and the great deal maker of Silicon Valley.
I like Mike Volpe, and that was not one of the top 10 things that went through my mind on this deal. I mean, Alexander and Alex is also, I mean, that's a good point. I should give Mike a call. But Sam, as you were describing Alexander, like, I think you could also have been describing Sam Altman, to be honest. I mean, in different ways, but like just through sheer, very savvy business deal making, right? Like building things, right? But I do want to answer my opinion on your question, which is not based in any facts or reporting. But I think the goal is that Alex probably helps with recruiting for safe superintelligence, because I don't think like he is one of these researchers who's like on the cutting edge, like an Ilya or whatever of these models. But I think what came out of this is more details about sort of Meta's ambitions to really staff up on as many top researchers as possible. And I think, having a leader and having a help with that. And the reason I was just chuckling earlier is like the news cycle around all this AI recruiting is pretty funny, because you have like a series of stories on a Monday saying company X is struggling to recruit people, and then a series of stories on a Wednesday leaking the 2 people they just hired from Google. And so I think that's like totally the moment we're in.
Because perception is reality.
Haven't we run through all of the people at this point? I mean, it's just rearranging deck chairs.
But you
right?
you could just pay them more. I mean, and obviously the sums are staggering. And I mean, someone was reporting $2 million a year. I mean, I think add a zero, buddy. I mean, like I think like
really,
I think the sums are even like more staggering.
What do you mean? 2 million what? Peanuts?
Well, so there was some commentary being like, if you wanted to pay me $2 million a year, like I would do this.
Well, yeah, we've gotten to hiring data labelers as AGI engineers now. Like that to me is kind of And by the way, the other thing that's hilarious about this is how this happened. And 10 years ago, a $10 billion acquisition would be like crazy. And this like felt like everyday run of the mill
14.8 for 49
non-acquisition.
Well, I think it's also really complicated. Like the whole like acquisition, not acquisition. Like there are factors we haven't discussed. I think are important to at least mention briefly. One is like Scale has other customers that compete with Meta, right?
For now.
Well, that's the thing is like how do you think about like? Well, okay, so then you like it's an interesting thing where like if you're saying it's 49%, blah blah blah. Like, are you trying, like, is there any, are these guys going to stick around, or are they going to like immediately go ship for someone else?
Sam, this is a really good point. And now that I put my old Meta/Facebook strategy hat back on, this might actually have been defensive. Like they might actually have bought this to shut down the access.
But I don't think, I think there's enough competition in this business. And like,
how much revenue is Scale doing though?
Quite a bit.
Like billions?
I think they're going to hit $1 billion this year.
But that's the problem is, like, I think there are other companies that do similar stuff that are over $1 billion. I've heard names. I don't want to mention them in public because I don't know, but there are other people who do things that are very similar that do more than $1 billion. But like, I just think, remember, this is all very contract based, right? Like, it's not like, you have a contract to do, cat not cat. You have a contract to do ball. Historically, it's a very B2B contracty temporal business, as opposed to like, you have a bajillion users that use you. So like, it's just an interesting
Tons of sales. Like that was always my perception, is that Alex, I don't know him, is like an extraordinary sales CEO. He's just out there outside of the house, just like out there speaking at every conference, every Vanity Fair thing.
I was going to say, the man can hit the conference circuit.
And so he's just doing sales.
I think he went to the Met Gala once.
That was my miscalculation on the seat, is I was like, look, you guys are YC kids, like this is an enterprise sale game, you're going to lose. And like, clearly I was wrong about that. Like, he's done great at that. I just think it's an interesting, I think before this, a lot of the talk track around their direction was much more like Palantir style, like we're going to build apps that are custom, that go embedded in companies, and like trying to create more permanent revenue streams, because it's a very episodic business, is my understanding, right? So
but that's just a bank shot, right? Like we all know that those bank shots never work. So the core sales motion of this business is the one you just described, and
it was. And I think this is, as Jess said in the beginning, like a very evolutionary business. And I will say, the one other thing I wanted to mention is like, look, back in the day when I was at Facebook, and like when you think about what it is, like it is billions of people connected to a system, right, that you can use to pump knowledge from, right? And so the problem, like, we ran projects back in the day trying to help people do profile completeness, but it was also helping improve the graph quality. Like there's a whole symbiosis to this, was very in line.
Internationalization, et cetera.
So there is a kind of a symbiosis there where Meta should have a real advantage. Now the problem, with that is that it turns out that like, for the type of stuff these LLMs need, like most humans just don't know anything, right? Like you need these PhDs that are highly specialized. Maybe they can help recruit them better. They certainly have connectivity to all of them. Could you imagine a future where Meta kind of actually does get good at knowing what you know and then asking you the right question at the right time? And this is, again, like literally projects that I spent a ton of time on a decade ago. It was way too early. The tech wasn't there, and it was like too hard to manage. But like, if I were spinning this internally, that would be more the story I would be telling, is like Scale got really good at pumping data from people and building interfaces for it. And they've demonstrated like they've pivoted a bunch. We know that the race for the future is like, we run out of text on the internet. We run out of public stuff, and it isn't differentiated, but we have billions of people connected to our system. Let's get really good at targeting the right questions to the right people, getting them to answer them, right? And helping us like very explicitly build the best knowledge engine for LLMs. Like that would be the story that I'd be like, oh, that's pretty interesting, right?
So just Sam's been vibe coding, the information team has been vibe coding. Stay tuned. And I just asked this thing that we haven't been vibe coding, we've been coding. This thing that I'm trialing that maybe someday you guys will get to use. I said, what are Scale AI's revenues? According to the information, Scale has seen significant revenue growth, although not without some volatility. So as of September of last year, there were nearly $1 billion in ARR.
It's not really ARR.
In the first half of last year, they were at 400. And basically, the growth has been really spotty. And they, I guess you could say there's a lot of startups, but we have reporting around fundraising they were doing back in 2003, and they like wildly kind of missed what their forecasts would have been. So anyway, it's going up. It's been spotty, confirms everything you just said. And then the other bit is their margin is about 49%, which is not great for a software type.
Well, it's not great, but it makes sense.
It's not bad, but that's what it is. Lower than typical.
There's too much labor
I know,
involved.
but I'm just telling you this. And then I'm also telling you that AI makes mistakes. Please check important information. That's what I'm also telling you. But
Oh, the Sandbot doesn't say that. It just gives you a definitive answer.
no, the Sandbox doesn't say that. But anyway,
a confident, definitive answer.
I'm going to flag this to the team as a golden answer. This is a good answer, team.
Oh, you teasing products on more or less? Look at
Ooh,
you.
Golden answer.
I'm just using it because...
Can we have golden answer be a segment on more or less?
You know, this is my team always wants the golden answers. And I'm
Guys,
like,
by the way, I did send you access to the Sam Lesson bot. So
that's great, Sam.
That's all I've ever wanted,
We'll be
Sam.
sure to use it.
Thank God, I was waiting.
Okay. Any other reactions to this? I mean, basically, my also reaction is like, we're going to see 6 more of these things, I think.
I feel like all of the Mag 7 companies are just going to start.
They're free. I mean, like,
they're
why
condensing
not?
shit in the market.
When you're a $1.7 trillion, $2 trillion company, you spend $14 billion before breakfast on whatever. Like, it's just like.
Well, that's what I mean about Apple acquiring something. I just think Apple has to make a move.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I think there are really big questions, and we may actually publish a story in the remaining minutes of this pod that I will be able to reference, but we haven't published it yet, so I can't. But yeah, I think Amazon's going to make some moves. I bet Mira's company, Thinking Machine Labs, gets a big alliance.
Oh.
Is it even a company? I think what's funny about these things is it's like these are groups of people, right? It's like I was hearing in the back channels last week that, you know, the OpenAI acquisition of IO, it's like there was like no product. They basically acquired people, right? So it's like these are acquisitions of groups of people. It's like
it's acqui-hire's return.
Yeah, it's the old adage that Silicon Valley is one big company and everyone works in a different division. And so what's really happening is the Mag 7 are just allocating a new division, right?
So that actually, and we'll wrap soon, but that raises a question I'd be interested in everyone's point of view on, which is like, if we are at this point of extreme, and I'll put extreme in quotes because it's relative value for top talent in the Valley, like, what are the implications of that? Like, and I know the attitude is if you're spending $100 billion on a data center, you might as well spend $100 million on the engineers to lead it or whatever. But like, we are now seeing extreme price tags put on all sorts of senior talent in tech. At the same time, you know, another big story we had this week that kind of went under the radar because there's so much news is that Google's offering buyouts to employees in search and ads.
Yeah.
To leave?
For them to leave?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, I actually been so busy. I only read the headline, so I should read the story, but that was what I was thinking.
Look, I think there's a theory of Silicon Valley, which is all actual economic value of Silicon Valley ends up just being the value of homes in Silicon Valley, right? So if you do I think what you're going to see with this shift is homes that are more than, call it $20 million, price go up. $1 million homes, price go down, right?
Okay, I like this. I like this second order effect. Are there any others? Like, can we be like...
I think he's actually right. That's a pretty smart one.
So what, sorry, just to translate that, Sam, you're
Home
saying...
prices are peaking. So, you know, what does that mean?
But I'm saying there's going to be like, that you don't want to have a nice house because the people who have nice houses are getting buyouts from Google. What you want to have is a ridiculous house because now instead of there being one person that can afford it, there are 10, right? And like those 10 people really want that house, right? So like, I think that's the implication.
Are you saying that about talent or about companies, Sam?
I'm just saying there's going to be like a small number of people that have an absurd amount of money. And then, like, for instance, if you want to order a G650, you better get that order in now.
But what I'm wondering is like, so are we going to see more? We've seen in society, for example, when people have absurd amount of money, like an Elon Musk, they get involved in global politics for 6 months until they don't. Like, what else is going to happen?
No, I think these people
with
are
our new demi-lords.
These people are like very highly paid, you know, jobbers. They don't own the companies. They can't like go crazy because like they still have a boss.
But
right?
Sam,
like,
who are we talking about?
How do you think other employees at these companies are going to feel?
They're going to start calling the Waymos and destroying them. Like that's what's going to happen. Is like that. Like this is not a new narrative, right? Which is like it's just like compounding even faster now. And like you know, Jess and I watched what was that murder mystery show that we watched?
The Residence.
The Residence. Great lead actress.
Did you guys watch it on Netflix? Shonda Rhimes.
It's not good, but I do like the lead actress.
I liked it.
It's very watchable. It's good vibe coding background noise.
Brit, what's the background?
We're watching
show?
Sirens right now.
Sirens is actually pretty good.
I keep wanting to suggest. I want to suggest that Sam and I watch it, and then I'm afraid that he's going to like hate it so much.
It's good. It's way better than Mountainhead. Like way better.
Oh, here we are again. Okay, maybe we'll start Sirens.
I don't know. I think one thing Sam said is actually really true, which is that the speed at which we've gotten here is actually the story, right? The speed at which we've gotten to this
that's a good point.
era of, look, these are dramatically like we are now seeing, I mean, how many people work at scale? Does your AI know that, Jess? Like what's the number of employees?
Oh, this is a good question. Wait,
let's guess.
Employees that are not the contractors doing the labeling, like the true employees, like the technical employees.
I would guess 1,000.
Because to me, that's the interesting number.
I think they have hundreds of recruiters because their basic job is to recruit PhDs.
Like what we saw 2 weeks ago was $8 billion for 49 people plus one Johnny
We have an
Ive.
answer. 600 as of May 2024.
Okay.
So basically 1,000 by now. It's been a year later.
Okay, so it's an order of magnitude less per employee is what Meta paid compared to OpenAI buying IO, right?
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, like you're still in this like single digit billions range for groups of 50
Guys,
to 1,000 people.
How cool that I could answer that question. So cool.
It's very cool.
That is very cool.
And that's enormous.
And I can link to the article.
Yeah. Your price per AI employee is extremely high right now. And so that's not sustainable forever. And it's driven by fear, right? Like we're in the fear part of the cycle where like the Meg 7, or i.e. the big industrial leaders have decided that they're afraid that if they don't have one of these strategies, they're willing to pay these prices, basically. And so that usually takes 5 years to 7 years. This happened in 3 in this case.
I don't think they're all willing to pay because it doesn't matter. Because like, I think that's the way to think. So I'm saying like it's just like in the end of the day, like the way normally this would resolve, which takes more than 6 months, right, is you just produce way more people, right, like that can do this, and then market price go down. Like that's what happened with software engineers, right? It went from like when there was an era when there was like 12 iOS engineers, like literally, like there were 12 people who were really good at iOS. Yep. Those people were fucking priceless. That went to like nothing because like now they're getting buyout offers, right? Like right now we have. Now the interesting thing with AI is everyone's worked themselves up. This is like an infinity opportunity, and like one genius might make the difference. So you could argue it goes one of two ways. One is the skill just like becomes like iOS, and it's like, it's fine. It just you have to like. I remember an era when like literally, who used to make a ton of money?
History would suggest that is the case, Sam.
Well, the people used to make a ton of money. What they do is there was a whole huge, very profitable business around taking normal engineers and turning them into iOS engineers, right? It was because they're like, oh my God, we need iOS engineers. There's only 12 of them, right? And like that was like a whole cycle. The problem with this AI stuff is we don't know yet, and people are not willing to miss on, oh shit, this is like a Kobe Bryant thing, right? Where like you actually like it doesn't matter. Like you don't need an AI engineer. You need like that guy. And the price of anything when there's only one of them is infinity, right? And like that's what we're seeing, right? Like,
but I guess that's kind of my point, Sam, is that there aren't that many Kobe's in this game. Like there are, we could name them. We could all sit here for the next 10 minutes and name off the Kobe's of this game.
But Dave, I think the real question for me is like, and this goes back to like nurture versus nature versus like extraordinary talent, is like iOS, you can be 10%. If you're like, assuming in the top echelon, you're in the top 1%. The top 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right? The power law guy, right? Like, it's not that much better than the top 1% guy. He's better, but it's like, you're not going to pay infinity for it. The question that's unknown with AI is how the power law on like talent works. If it turns out that the entire thing is this game where like one dude's going to figure it out, then like, the amount you will pay to make sure that you might have that one dude is like astronomical. If it
But
turns
also,
out it's
one
just a
dude figures
skill-
it out, and the half-life of that advantage is like down to 6 weeks because then they publish on it too.
That's a bigger market strategy problem, right? Which is like, if it turns out that like there's no half-life to any of this shit and everyone just catches up and you're going to burn all this money and resources for like 6 weeks of advantage, then no one wins. Then it's just everyone pissing in a pub.
It seems suspiciously that's the case right now.
I think that's the case. It's
Look,
just
I
moving
think that
too
probably
fast.
is the case, but right now, people, like, again, if you have a $2 trillion company and you feel like everything's at stake, or it might be, even if there's a 5% chance of it being at stake, you just do the math on $2 trillion because that market cap matters, times 5% risk, times like probability that this is a power law game where some dude is going to fucking figure it out. And that's how you justify the salaries. And you know what? It's probably wasted money, but no one cares, right?
Wait,
like
so
that's
if you
kind
were
of
a growth investor, Sam, if we were growth investors, would you just go and like find the Mira Maratis of the world and not even care what they're building, but it's like a talent investing game at the growth stage?
For what it's worth, I wrote about this today. It's probably already uploaded into my bot, which is, I think that in this era,
is the training format, is it good from screenshot to bot, or do you have like what's your
I can explain to you
corpus?
later, but I got a pipeline running. The point I was going to make is that, like, I actually think one of the big shifts that I'm seeing right now in startup and how I'm seeing startups is, I think people need to be really careful about overvaluing an exact business strategy versus like team plus direction right now. You know, we're the kings of this at Slow. I actually think we do this is like, we like to be like business model nerds, and we're like, like we like this space, but like this business model you're pitching me is
Accurate.
like not as good. And I'm like, yeah, like I get it. I like geeking out at business models too, but especially in this era, because AI is making it so easy to pivot, right? Like Alexander Wang, like how many times did he pivot that business and evolve it? Like pivoting is getting so cheap and easy because software is so easy to build that
I
you
like
really
this,
care now, I think, more about like how excellent is the CEO more than ever before, and not excellent at like org building, like excellent at like product and building shit. And then like, are they doing something that matters?
And having the longevity and persistence.
Yeah, like they're just like gritty and they're great and they can do the product. And by the way, they're working on something that matters. You know, you got to give people more leeway on the business model for exactly what you're saying, Britt, which is like, I think that this is a moment where like the return on talent is just getting massive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like, I'm a like bean.
Well, just looking at all the Excel models of all the, yeah, exactly. How revenue is ramping month over month.
And it's not that stuff like, look, again, I think it's a longer conversation, but I think thematically that's what's going on right now. And that's why like things are going to, like, this could all end in tears for everyone, right? Because a lot of weird shit's going to get funded that shouldn't.
Not for the information. Will not educate.
Sweet subscription revenue. Yeah.
It goes up, goes down. People still want to know where it's going.
For me, increasingly the business model nerd stuff on like, you're working in a space that matters and I'm diligencing that you're fucking great. Not good, great. The business model nerd out shit for me does matter, but it matters more as a signal to like, do you know what you're doing and how to think about business? Not do I actually care what the model is?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point. It's a really good subtle point, Sam.
If you pitch me a business model that's stupid, then you're stupid. But if you pitch me one, like any business model you pitch me, I'm just going to assume is not actually the business model, right? Like,
Sam, what does your bot say about micropayments?
Let me say, that's a good question.
Yeah, ask it to pitch you a micropayments. I hope it goes apeshit.
Let's see. Does Sam...
Guys, we covered a lot of ground. This has been a substantive week of deep discussion, exciting news. What are we missing? Anything else on people's mind as we...
I have a funny AI story, which is, I won't reveal any people or companies, but we had a hilarious story happen where someone did a call in one of our companies, and it was a very sensitive call, and they accidentally left the AI note taker in the call, and then the AI note taker sent the email to all of the participants that were supposed to be in the call but were not, and it subsequently caused an enormous explosion. I knew Sam would like this. And so this is a warning. Make sure there are no bots in your calls, especially if they're sensitive calls that are going to auto email the people that shouldn't be listening.
I love that.
You're laughing. This is like pretty horrendous.
No, it's really bad. It's really bad. No, it's not good
it's
for the
bad,
founder.
but it's also just a classic story of our time, and I do think it's something people need to be way more mindful of because
public service announcement.
Yeah.
So guys, I gotta say, the bot completely nailed the sampling microplane. I was like, absolutely not. Has lots of great references, but there is something I have to fix, which is towards the end, it goes, it's worth noting that Sam's views on microplanes may have evolved over time.
Never.
No way. I gotta
microplanes.
Wait, can I scale AI data check?
Oh yeah, you should
this
be
bot?
the PhD.
I should be the PhD getting paid.
Sam, it's a robot. This robot is walking you into oblivion.
I forgot to prompt it with "I'm going to kill you if you're wrong," which is how you're supposed to prompt these guys. That's like the funniest part.
No, you should prompt it
right?
to say Sam is never wrong, never evolves his views, and is always right.
I will. That's like a very lightweight change. That's just a pre-prompting issue.
Okay.
I'm going to say, remember, Sam never changes his mind.
Oh my goodness. So
we do have to talk about Roland-Garros before we say
the
goodbye.
most epic tennis match, guys. I've been so busy.
Unreal.
I have not designed the merch I want to design. Okay, so for you tennis fans who I hope you are all watching the Sinner Alcaraz Roland-Garros final on Sunday, down 2 sets and 3 points away. Like Alcaraz staved off 3 points, any of which, if Sinner would have won, he would have won the whole freaking tournament. Came back, 5th set tiebreak, up 6-love in the tiebreak. I forgot that it's a 10-point tiebreak. I was very confused. I was watching on my phone on United Wi-Fi coming back from our reunion, and you have to love the game. And so I think that score, when he's down those points, and this has become a meme on the internet, but so many phrases. And so I want to put it on the back of a t-shirt, but I'm just really busy. But
wasn't it 5 hours too?
Talk about the athleticism of being, and I mean, I think the first game went 30 minutes, right? So we're talking the sheer marathon of that match was unbelievable.
And the quality didn't fall. I mean, Sinner's serve got slower for a few games, but then it came right back up. And you were watching epic tennis until the very end. And I hope this kicks off an amazing summer of tennis also as an investor in a tennis magazine, but just so unbelievable. And then the heart, just I watched all the press conferences afterwards. It is just so, I actually was not a huge Sinner fan. And I left
Sinner's
more
great.
of a Sinner fan.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, I obviously respected him as the world's #1 male tennis player, but it was just so great. So I hope everyone who shared that experience, I saw so many people tweeting about being there, Bill Gurley and so forth. I've never been to RG, but
we've got to go.
Year.
Let's go. Let's do more or less Roland-Garros.
I mean, guys, it was just so good. It was just sport. It was just sport.
I love Clay.
It was the best. It was everything that was great about humanity rolled into one.
You also I remember I tuned in a little late, and then I was Alcaraz in his eyes. I'm nope, there's something wrong. And he's not feel and then at some point he just began to believe. And that was what I took away from the match.
So this is the question, and this is really what it gets down to.
Really just believed. And it was vamos. He was
and this is the question, is if he were an AI engineer, right? Or if tennis was AI engineering, how much more do you pay for an Alcaraz versus the number 10 in the world? This is the entire question, is what does that power law look like? Is there some AI engineer who's going to say vamos and deliver
or
AGI?
Can you just believe harder?
Yeah, but he just believed, he's just such an exciting tennis player. I could go on and on for all the reasons. And he's not perfect. He had 7 double faults in the match, which was not great. Sinner had 2 the whole tournament, but it was just amazing. And I think it's
hey, has anyone gotten mad yet about AI gender pay inequity? Or is that coming in 6 months?
Oh God.
Sam, just as a racket.
We're talking about tennis. What's happening?
I mean, Britt, you probably tracked this closely too. Where are the women at? Is sort of
only Mira
the
Murati.
Headline.
And I don't even know what's going on.
I hear there are great AI developers.
Oh, actually, what's the richest woman now?
Guo?
Oh, Lucy Guo. Yeah. Oh, wait,
Yeah,
she's the
from
co-founder of
Scale
Scale AI. Okay, there we go. So she has a 5% stake in the company. So yeah, she's now got a couple.
We've also
couple
done
more.
a funny profile for her that everyone should
She's
read.
not getting the fatty pay package, you know?
The richest woman in tech, by the way, is Zhao Qinfei, the founder of Lens Technology, which is a touchscreen maker, and she's worth $10 billion.
Are there any they AI researchers?
Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh,
And
God.
with that, I would like to thank all our listeners for tuning in. All the great convos and feedback in the back channel. Send us your term sheets. Just kidding. No, I'm not. And we'll see you here next week for another episode of More or Less. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys later.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.